repetition of the research we have done in the Lønningsbekk Creek and the Lønningshavn Bay. We went out to sample and explore and assess the water quality of Lønningsbekk, a small creek southwest of Bergen. Filled with eager, we went straight into Google Maps to have a look at the site. What we saw was a beautiful river surrounded by a dense forest and connecting a small lake, which rumor has it was filled with trout, to an estuary in the Lønningshavn Bay, which will be shown here now. We sampled our way up along the forest, and we were struck by the beauty of the peacefulness of the environment. But when we reached Site 3, something was different. We saw there was a change in the sediments. It did not look natural. Was there something else going on around this river? Well, we continued, and we passed the school camp, and we crossed the road before we finally were back in the forest. And we continued sampling in the dense forest. We got our way in the dense forest, and we sampled our last sample, and we were very eager to see the life source of this lonely creek. So we hastened up the last hill with this picture in our minds. But what we saw was this. The construction work, yeah, we saw this. Because construction work had been closing in on the lake for a while, and now it had disappeared completely. And we were wondering, could the samples we had done on the biodiversity and the health of the river tell us something more about its status today? Well, to our results now. David and Kjetil will take it further.
Thank you, Susanne. Okay, so we looked at the E. coli level, the phosphorus level, and we looked at the biodiversity of this creek. So, the E. coli would tell us something about the amount of human and animal waste entering this creek. So, as you can see on this graph here, coming up soon, very soon, they're quite good. E. coli level was low. So in fact, in the upper part of the creek here is very good. It goes up a bit down here, but it's still fair water quality in terms of swimming. But what about phosphorus? Phosphorus is a plant nutrition. An excess amount of phosphorus will lead to eutrophication of the creek. So the phosphorus levels were less good. All the way in the creek, there were elevated levels. But as we went up and down this creek, we couldn't see any signs of eutrophication. But what about the biodiversity?
Last time, goodbye! Last time, goodbye!
David.
Yeah, we found 8 small freshwater animals, like this you see in the picture. The most dominant animal was the worms, as you can see this one. They are very tolerant and they can survive under harsh environment. They are represented by the blue bar in this graph. We would find many of the other species as well, but we found very few of them. Does this tell something about the biodiversity of the creek? So we tested the status of the creek by referring to biodiversity indexes. These indexes are based on resistance to pollution. The creek with which biodiversity can have values greater than 150. How about in our case? Is it rich in terms of biodiversity? No, I don't think so. Because these figures tell us that the biodiversity of the creek is very poor. Thank you.
So, as you can see, the E. coli level is quite low. There's no problem from this creek. The phosphorus is less good, yeah, but we didn't see any eutrophication. The problem of this creek is the very low biodiversity. The low biodiversity of this creek is contradicting the beauty it has. So, what have caused this? Maybe the removal of the lake have influenced the river flow. It's the sediments coming from the construction site or the concrete factories. Ruth, what's up to it?
Yeah, Lønningsbekk is one of many rivers and creeks that are affected by urbanization in the Bergen area. And so we can ask ourselves what will be the consequences for the future as we make our way in the global society. To put our project in a global perspective, Samina here will tell us more about the challenges regarding freshwater in her home country, Bangladesh.
Okay, I am from Bangladesh. Bangladesh is a land of natural beauty. Sundarban is the world's largest mangrove, which is situated in Bangladesh, and Bangladesh is rich in wildlife. But Bangladesh is struggling with expanding society. Bangladesh has lots of population and has lots of problems. Drinking water is one of the major problems in my country. There are lots of water in Bangladesh, but there are limitation of drinking water. The major problem is drinking water, which is related to the major problem is arsenic, and it's related to the groundwater. 77 million people in my country believe they have been affected by arsenic. And the symptoms of arsenic like this: the rashes appears on feet and hand, and its worst case is cancer. Before, people used actually river water, but the river is polluted in my country and it carries lots of waterborne disease like cholera. Then people shifted from river to groundwater for drinking, but the problem is not solved. The expanding society need for factories, industry and transportation is increasing. The growing population lead increasing demand, and the balance between the land and the nature, land and the industry is very difficult to manage.
As we've seen, water quality is a global concern, and the story is different in every country. The story is particularly different between Bangladesh, which is a developing country with a dense population and where people cannot even choose their water source anymore, and Norway, a developed country with a very small population. So the question remains the same, however. How can we choose, how can we balance the needs of an expanding society and the health of our rivers and waters? Thank you.